So Omar, come here and stand right here by me. Cindy was saying some people were saying to her, who is that guy? Is he going to be a priest? Because he's dressed like a priest. So hold your arms out, Omar. See, he has sleeves. I don't have sleeves. If you have sleeves, it's called a dalmatic, and it's what a deacon wears. This is a chasuble. It's what a priest wears. And so if you were wondering if he's the new priest or if he's going to become a new priest, he's a deacon, and he's dressed appropriately as a deacon. And I don't know, just a little Catholic liturgy lesson, I guess. Now you know. Have you ever heard that word, dalmatic? No? Some no, some yes. So there you have it. Wow. So I was talking to someone before Mass, and she was telling me that the Magi, not only were the Magi not 3 kings, but they had to have been 3 women. I'm like, okay, I'll bite. Why? She said, because they asked directions. All right. It doesn't matter. I'm still not going to ask directions. We're almost there. I got this, right? So George Burns, I was reading a little quote from George Burns this week. He said that a good homily has a good beginning and a good ending. And they're very close together. I'm still working on that part. Yeah. So wow, these Magi. I just had just 3 little things to say about them, and I'm just going to go in a whole new direction. I'm not going to use any of my old stuff. One, these guys were looking up. They were looking up, and they were looking up at the stars. And the Pope asked this week, probably in light of Epiphany, whether we as Catholics still know how to look up. Do we? Do we look up, or are we always looking to the ground? Are we looking up and through that following the stars? Are we following our dreams? Are we following that longing that we have to seek God and find God? Are we following that expectation of newness in our life just all the time? Or do we just look down and follow after things like health and having a little bit of money, and just that ability to get through our life, maybe with a little entertainment, cable TV, those kind of things. Somebody once said if people can call on their phone and order a pizza and have cable TV, all is well. They're not interested in much more than that. And so the Pope asks, do we as Catholics still know how even to look up and to let go of those other things and to be a people who are looking up, and people where heaven and earth is aligning, and people where the things of this world are important? I spent almost all week with my financial guy this week, trying to prepare for retirement. You remember this guy? He's the one who told me, I have good news, Father, and bad news. Yeah. And I said, give me the bad news. He said, you'll never retire. That's my finance guy. I said, well, what's the good news? He says, there's a priest shortage. You can work your whole life. So I spent the week with that guy. How grounded can you be? Yeah. And you know what? He loves Donald Trump. If you're going to have a good finance guy, I guess he's got to love Donald Trump. Yeah, and so he's got me all invested in all those market-growing investments. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. So grounded. We do need to stay grounded at some level, right? We do need to prepare and to do that work here, but we can lose ourselves in that work. And we can lose ourselves, and we can ask with the Pope, do we still know how to look up? Pope's always telling us to dream, keep dreaming. We'll never do that work of God in our churches unless we dream. Okay? The second one, set out. Once you start dreaming, once you start expecting new things happening, set out. Just take risks. Number 2 is take risks. You're not meant to sit there in that pew. Our whole religion is not about polite etiquette. It's not about sitting, it's about setting out. It's not about standing still, it's about going out and taking risks. Our whole religion isn't about just this polite etiquette, it's just about journey, embarking, getting out on the journey, getting out there. Our whole faith is about the journey. It's about that risky journey, getting out there. And the question is then, well, what are you going to put in front of us to make it worth taking the risk? Is it really worth taking the risk? Is it really worth upsetting everything? Pope said to the kids on World Youth Day, go mess everything up. Well, what's going to happen that makes it worth getting out of my armchair and taking risk? Yeah, our faith is that good. When we seek God, when we find God, the outcome in our lives, the work that God does in us is so amazing that our life is worth living. Herod, no, not so much. Herod stayed locked up in his palace. Didn't want to get out. And so he sent other people to go look for this child. And Jerusalem was worried what kind of changes this would bring if we take risks and set out. Worse yet were the scribes and the priests. They knew. They knew about the Christ. They were like us. They were like people who their whole life know their faith, but just sit there and don't set out. Don't get on the journey. Don't take the risks. Don't stir it all up. Don't make this faith a faith of seeking God our whole lives. Yeah, we don't want to be that people. When I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to say, well, I had a little health. I took care of my finances, and I lived a pretty entertained life. It was nice. I had cable. Yeah, but nothing meant anything. I want to say I looked up. I followed the stars every day. I dreamed every day, right? I took risks. I set out. I was on a journey. I didn't sit. I got up and I got out. And I walked with God every day of my life. Third thing. Well, I was reading a story about a guy who just genuinely wanted to have a spirituality. His name was Abu Adam. And it was a couple hundred years ago or whatever, and he was actually very wealthy by standards of the days. He had dressed in nice silk clothes and slept in a nice bed, and he was wealthy by everyone's standards. But he genuinely, sincerely wanted also to be wealthy in spiritual things, wealthy in the things that matter. And so he began to seek God. He began to be on that journey. And one night, he heard this horrible noise on his roof. And so he gets up and he figures it's up there and he says, "Who's up there?" And this guy says, "I am. I'm up here trying to get my camel off your roof." And he's like, "Well, what are you doing with a camel on a roof?" And the man said back, "What are you doing in silk and that nice bed trying to seek God?" And he's like, "Yeah, if you want to take a journey, it's not going to be in comfy clothes and in a comfy bed. It's going to be taking risks. It's going to be setting out. And it's going to be being generous as well." I read another story this week. It was about a couple. They had just been married, and they were driving down the country road, and one of those country storms came up, where the clouds just burst and open up, and they couldn't go any further on this little country road, so they stopped, and they kind of worked their way through the mud to the farmhouse. It was dark. The farmers, the man and his wife, met him on the porch with a kerosene lantern. They had seen through the window what was going on. And so the couple said, we've just been married and we're stuck here on the road. Would you be willing to put us up for the night? As he was talking, they noticed some rice fell out of the woman's headpiece. They had just been married. And so they gave each other that knowing look, so to speak. And he said, yeah, we'll put you in our guest room. And so the couple went into the guest room and had a nice night and we got up, and on their way up, they quietly got up and they put $10 on the dresser in the guest room, and they were sneaking out. And as they snuck out, they got into the living room and they saw the man sleeping on the couch. And they looked and saw the woman curled up in the chair. And they realized that they didn't have a guest room. They had put them up in their room. And they realized that this couple, they noticed what the couple had done. And the story ended, the person telling it said, and Jesus also noticed what this couple had done when everyone else was watching, Leno or Letterman or whatever else. This couple was generous and giving. Number 3 on the list for the Magi, on your journey, be generous. Give generously. Give of your life. Give to strangers. Give out of your, not just your abundance, but give out of your very life. And give without expecting anything back. Give without expecting back. In fact, as the deacon usually gives you an assignment, the Pope this week gave an assignment to everyone who was listening to him. He said, this week I want you to go out and give. Give to somebody. Unexpected. And give without expecting anything back. Yeah, that's the journey we're called to be on. And I just think every one of us, because we're made in God's image, because we're human, for some reason, I think that's the journey that appeals to everyone. I think each of us can feel God speaking in our heart saying, I don't want to just sit there my whole life. At the end of it, I want to say, I dreamed. I followed the stars. I took risks. I set out and I lived my life generously and fully. What a wonderful call. What a wonderful life. What a wonderful faith we have.